The cabin stood forgotten in the Montana wilderness, its weathered walls hiding unspeakable cruelty. Inside, Sarah Lawson marked her 37th day in chains, hope fading with each sunset. Her captor had stopped coming 3 days ago. Starvation now competed with her other torments. Outside, a storm gathered as Travis Reid followed nothing but instinct and a dying man's whisper about a cabin where no cabin should be. The former ranch hand-turned-drifter had seen his share of darkness, carried his own demons across 5 states. But nothing prepared him for what waited behind that splintered door. His boot crashed against rotted wood, rifle raised against whatever evil might linger. What he found instead was a woman's broken gaze meeting his. Would the chains that bound her body prove easier to break than those binding her spirit? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Travis Reid had not planned on being a hero that day. Truth be told, he hadn't planned on being much of anything for the past 5 years. Not since the fire. The leather journal he carried was worn thin at the corners, its pages filled with the sparse notations of a man who spoke little and wrote even less. Most entries were practical, good water sources, potential work, towns best avoided. But the latest entry was different, just 3 lines scratched in his uneven hand. Asterisk dying man at Cooper's trading post. Mentioned cabin, northeast ridge, old mining camp. Woman needs help. Probably nothing. Asterisk. Travis ran his thumb over the words as he guided his horse through the dense pines. The old stallion, Caesar, knew the rhythm of long journeys. 5 years of drifting had taught them both patience. Probably nothing, Travis muttered again, the words disappearing into his untrimmed beard. That's what he'd told himself 2 days ago when the stranger had grabbed his arm with surprising strength, eyes wide with fever. Cabin past the old Sullivan mine. She's there, chained up like an animal. The man's voice had cracked, his breathing labored. Been weeks maybe. He comes and goes. Travis had tried to extract more information, but death had been too eager a visitor. By morning, the stranger was gone, buried behind Cooper's store with no name to mark his passing. It would have been easy to ride on. Travis had become adept at moving on, at not getting involved. The war had taught him that skill. The fire had perfected it. Yet here he was, climbing steadily into wilderness that hadn't seen many visitors since the Sullivan mine had played out 15 years back. The trail grew fainter as the afternoon wore on. Twice he dismounted to check for signs of recent passage. The second time, he found it, a boot print pressed into mud near a creek crossing, no more than a few days old. Too large to be a woman's. The sky darkened as thunderheads gathered over the mountains. The approaching storm matched his mood as he considered what might await him. If the dying man's words were true, someone had been keeping a woman prisoner in these mountains. The thought kindled something in Travis he'd thought long extinguished. As the first fat raindrops began to fall, the trees thinned to reveal the remains of the mining settlement. A dozen ramshackle buildings clung to the mountainside, their windows dark and empty. Most had collapsed under the weight of winters past, but a few still stood in defiance of time and elements. Travis dismounted, tethering Caesar beneath a sheltering pine. His Winchester rifle came easily to hand, a companion older than his horse and far less forgiving. 16 notches marked its stock, each representing a time when Travis had been forced to pull its trigger against a man. He had sworn never to add another, yet here he was. He moved cautiously through the abandoned camp, boots silent on the damp earth. The rain was falling steadily now, drumming on the rotted roofs and obscuring distant sounds. Travis relied on instinct and the fading words of a dead man to guide him. The cabin stood apart from the others, tucked against the mountainside where the trees grew close. Unlike its neighbors, this one showed signs of recent repair. A new plank in the door, freshly cut wood stacked against one wall. Someone had been here and recently. Travis approached from the side, keeping to the shadows. No smoke rose from the chimney despite the chill. No light flickered behind the single grimy window. If not for the woodpile, he might have thought it as abandoned as the rest. He listened at the door, the rain masking any sounds from within. Something urged caution, but another feeling, one he hadn't felt in years, pushed him forward. The door was secured with a heavy padlock. Not to keep people out, he realized. To keep someone in. The decision came without conscious thought. Travis stepped back, raised his boot, and drove it against the door beside the lock. The wood splintered but held. A second kick sent the door crashing inward, and Travis followed, rifle raised against whatever devil had imprisoned a woman in this godforsaken place. The cabin's interior was dim, but enough light filtered through the doorway to reveal a scene that stopped Travis cold. Chains snaked across the rough plank floor, leading to a figure huddled in the corner. A woman, so still he feared he might be too late. Then she moved, raising her head to meet his gaze. Her eyes reflected no hope, no relief, only the wariness of someone who had learned that new faces didn't mean salvation. Sarah Lawson had once believed in a world of order and purpose. The daughter of a Massachusetts banker, she had grown up in a home where education was revered and propriety observed. At 28, she had taught in Boston's finest schools before accepting a position in the Montana Territory, an adventure that would allow her to help shape a young community while escaping the whispers that followed an unmarried woman of her age. The faded photograph she kept in her small leather pouch showed a different Sarah, one with clear eyes and confident posture, standing between her parents on the steps of their Beacon Hill home. That woman seemed a stranger now. "Water," Travis said, offering a canteen. His voice was rough from disuse. Sarah's hand trembled as she reached for it, the chains rattling against the floor. 37 days of captivity had taught her caution. "I won't hurt you," he said, squatting down to her level but maintaining distance. "I'm here to help." She drank slowly, her cracked lips stinging. "He'll be back," she whispered, her voice a rasp. "Emmett always comes back." Travis glanced around the cabin. A single bed, a table with one chair, a cast-iron stove long gone cold. A shelf held meager supplies, some canned goods, matches, a bottle of whiskey. On the table lay a leather-bound book, its pages filled with cramped, uneven writing. "Emmett Blackwood," Sarah continued, nodding toward the journal. "Former Confederate soldier. Collector of things broken and abandoned." A bitter smile touched her lips. "Like me." Travis moved to examine her chains, anger hardening his features. "How long?" "I lost count after the first month." Sarah's gaze drifted to the small window, where rain streaked the dirty glass. The stagecoach was attacked outside of Helena. He killed the driver and the guard. There was a family, a mother and child. Her voice faltered. "I don't know what happened to them." Travis found where the chains were secured to an iron ring bolted to the floor. "Has he hurt you?" The question was gentle but direct. Sarah's silence was answer enough. "When did you last see him?" 3 days ago. He said he was going for supplies." Sarah's eyes suddenly widened. "You need to leave." He has friends, dangerous men. If they find you here, let me worry about that." Travis pulled a small leather case from his pocket and extracted slender metal tools. "I'm getting you out of these chains. Then we're leaving." "I can't walk far," Sarah admitted. "He kept me chained. I haven't stood upright in weeks." Travis worked on the locks, his hands steady despite the urgency of their situation. "Caesar can carry us both if needed." "Your horse?" He nodded. "Been with me longer than I deserved." The lock clicked, and the manacle around Sarah's left wrist fell away. She rubbed the raw skin beneath, tears threatening despite her resolve to show no weakness. "Why are you helping me?" she asked as he moved to free her other wrist. "You don't know me." Travis didn't look up from his work. "Man at a trading post mentioned this place. Said a woman needed help." "What man?" "Never got his name. He died soon after." Sarah's breath caught. "Was he young? With a scar here?" She touched her cheek. Travis paused. "No. Older fellow. Gray beard." As the second manacle opened, Sarah closed her eyes briefly. Someone had tried to help her, someone who'd paid with his life. She had no doubt Blackwood was responsible. "There was another prisoner," she said. "A young man. Blackwood caught him spying on the cabin last week. I heard them arguing outside." Travis moved to free her ankles. "He didn't mention anyone else." Blackwood took him away. I thought. She swallowed hard. I assumed he'd killed him. The final chain fell away, and Sarah attempted to stand. Her legs buckled immediately. Travis caught her before she hit the floor, his strong hands gentle on her arms. Easy, he murmured. It'll take time. In the corner of the cabin, a broken pocket watch lay on the floor, its hands frozen at 3:17, the moment her world had changed once again. Sarah stared at it as Travis helped her to the chair. We need to go, he said, moving to the door to check outside. Storm's getting worse. It'll cover our tracks but make traveling difficult. I need a moment. Sarah massaged her legs, willing strength into muscles gone soft from disuse. Just a moment to understand that this is real. Travis nodded, his eyes softening briefly. It's real. And this nightmare is over. Travis gathered what supplies he could find while Sarah struggled to stand. Each attempt lasted longer than the previous one, determination gradually overcoming weakness. He keeps a journal, Sarah said, gesturing to the book on the table. You should read it. Travis picked up the leather-bound volume, flipping through pages filled with spidery handwriting. His expression darkened as he read. He's planned this for years, Travis said. Finding isolated women, taking them. He turned another page. There are others mentioned here. Sarah nodded, leaning against the table for support. He talks in his sleep sometimes. Names I don't know. Travis closed the journal and tucked it into his saddlebag. This needs to reach the authorities. A clap of thunder shook the cabin. Through the open door, they could see the storm intensifying, rain driving sideways through the trees. Can you walk? Travis asked. Sarah took a tentative step, then another. Not quickly. Not far. We don't have a choice. Travis slung his rifle over his shoulder and moved to support her. Blackwood's due back, and this journal suggests he's bringing supplies for a long stay. The implications hung in the air between them. Sarah shuddered. There's a settlement 3 days' ride southwest, Travis said. We'll head there. What about the others? Sarah asked. The women he mentioned in the journal. Travis's jaw tightened. First priority is getting you to safety. Then I'll come back with the law. Sarah wanted to argue but knew he was right. In her condition, she would only slow any rescue attempt. Even now, she could feel her legs trembling with the effort of standing. We need to go, Travis said, checking his pistol before returning it to his holster. Storm's only going to get worse. He helped Sarah to the door. The first step outside nearly overwhelmed her. The vastness of the sky, the smell of rain and pine, the feel of wind against her skin. Freedom, so long imagined, now terrifyingly real. Rain soaked them immediately. Travis guided her toward a stand of pines where Caesar waited, patient despite the weather. The horse nickered softly at their approach. Travis was helping Sarah onto the saddle when a glint of metal caught his eye. He spun, drawing his pistol in one fluid motion. A man stood at the edge of the clearing, rifle aimed in their direction. Tall and gaunt, with a wild beard and wilder eyes, he wore a tattered Confederate greatcoat despite the years since the war's end. That's my property you're stealing, he called over the storm's noise. Sarah's fingers dug into Travis's shoulder. Blackwood, she whispered. Travis positioned himself between Sarah and the threat. Woman's not property, he called back. And you're finished with her. Blackwood's laugh carried across the clearing. Finished? I'm just getting started. He gestured with his rifle. Walk away, stranger. Pretend you never saw this place. Can't do that. Then you'll die here. Blackwood shifted his aim. The shot came a heartbeat before Travis expected it. He dove to the side, pulling Sarah with him behind the shelter of a fallen log. Caesar bolted at the gunfire but stopped at the edge of the trees, trained too well to abandon his master. Travis returned fire, his bullet splintering the tree beside Blackwood. The man disappeared into the underbrush with surprising speed. He knows these woods, Sarah warned, her breath coming in frightened gasps. Every trail, every hiding place. Travis reloaded quickly. Can you make it to that stand of pines? I'll cover you. Sarah nodded, gathering her strength. At Travis's signal, she half ran, half stumbled toward the trees. Travis fired twice in Blackwood's direction, forcing the man to keep his head down. Another shot rang out, this one coming from their right. Travis cursed, realizing Blackwood had circled around. "He's not alone," Sarah gasped as Travis reached her side. "I told you, he has friends." "We need to move," Travis said, whistling for Caesar. The horse approached cautiously, ears flicking toward the sounds of danger. Travis helped Sarah onto Caesar's back, then swung up behind her. "Hold tight," he murmured, and urged the horse forward into the storm. Behind them, Blackwood's voice carried over the rain. "I'll find you. This mountain's not big enough to hide her." They rode hard through the gathering darkness, following a deer trail that wound deeper into the wilderness. Sarah clung to the saddle horn, every muscle screaming in protest after weeks of inactivity. But stronger than the pain was her determination to escape, to never again feel the bite of chains against her skin. The broken pocket watch lay abandoned on the cabin floor, its hands still marking the moment of Travis's arrival, the dividing line between captivity and the desperate flight for freedom that now consumed them both. The rain beat against them with increasing fury as Caesar navigated the treacherous mountain path. Travis kept the horse to a walk, aware that one misstep on the slick terrain could end their escape before it truly began. Sarah leaned against him, her body tense with pain and exhaustion. "We need to get off this main trail," Travis said, his voice barely audible above the storm. "Blackwood will expect us to head for the valley." "There's an old mining road," Sarah replied. Blackwood mentioned it once. Said it wasn't used anymore because of a rock slide. Travis nodded, scanning the darkening forest. "Which direction?" "East Pacific." He said it followed a creek bed. They rode in silence for several minutes, the tension in Travis's body communicating more than words. Every sound, branches creaking, water rushing over rocks, drew his attention. Sarah could feel his vigilance in the way he held himself, slightly turned to keep his gun hand free. "You've done this before," she observed. "Running. Fighting." Travis didn't answer immediately. War teaches habits that peace doesn't break. A branch snapped somewhere behind them. Travis reined Caesar to a halt, listening intently. The forest had gone quiet save for the rain. "Deer, maybe," he murmured, but his hand rested on his pistol. The shot came from their left, the bullet whining past Travis's ear. Caesar reared, nearly throwing them both. Travis controlled the horse with one hand while drawing his pistol with the other. "Go," Sarah urged, spotting movement among the trees. "He's trying to flank us." Travis spurred Caesar forward, abandoning caution for speed. The horse responded gallantly, hooves churning the muddy ground as they crashed through the underbrush. More shots followed, but the storm and gathering darkness spoiled the shooter's aim. They broke from the forest onto a ridge, momentarily exposed. Below them stretched a valley cloaked in mist and rain. Behind them, voices called to each other, at least 3 men coordinating their pursuit. "The mining road," Sarah said, pointing to where a narrow cut descended along the ridge. "There." Travis guided Caesar onto the overgrown path. True to Sarah's word, it followed a creek that had swollen with rainwater, rushing beside them with frightening power. The path descended steeply, forcing Travis to trust the horse's sure-footedness. "He's wounded," Sarah said suddenly, her hand coming away bloody from Travis's side. "Grazed," Travis replied tersely. "Nothing to worry about." But Sarah could feel his breathing change, becoming more measured, controlled. Managing pain. The path narrowed further, hugging the mountainside with the creek now a raging torrent below. Caesar slowed, sensing the danger of the crumbling edge. "We need to find shelter," Sarah said. "You're bleeding and night's coming fast." Travis nodded grimly. "First sign of a defensible position, we'll stop." They continued their descent, the sounds of pursuit fading behind them. Whether they'd lost Blackwood and his men or simply outdistanced them temporarily, neither could say. As darkness closed around them, the rain finally began to slack. Travis spotted a crevice in the cliff face, not quite a cave, but deep enough to provide shelter and with only one approach to defend. "There," he said, guiding Caesar to a small clearing before the rocky opening. Sarah nearly collapsed when Travis helped her down. Her legs, unused to the saddle after weeks of captivity, trembled violently. Travis steadied her, his own movements careful and measured. "Let me see your wound," she insisted once they were under the rocky overhang. Travis reluctantly removed his coat. The bullet had torn through his shirt at the waist, leaving a bloody furrow across his ribs. Sarah examined it by the dim light of the storm-clouded dusk. "Not deep, but needs cleaning," she said. "Do you have water? Anything for bandages?" Travis produced his canteen and a reasonably clean bandana. "This is all until morning. Can't risk a fire tonight." Sarah cleaned the wound as best she could, her teacher's hands surprisingly steady at this new task. Travis endured her ministrations in silence, his gaze fixed on the darkening forest beyond their shelter. "You should have left me," Sarah said quietly. "Ridden for help instead of taking me with you. Now we're both being hunted." Travis's eyes found hers in the gloom. Leaving wasn't an option. "But you don't know me. You owe me nothing." He was silent for a long moment. "Some debts aren't about what's owed," he finally said. "They're about what's right." Sarah wrapped the bandage around his torso, her fingers brushing against old scars that spoke of other wounds, other battles. "Well, I'm grateful. Whatever your reasons." Travis nodded, then moved to the edge of their shelter to watch the trail below. "Try to rest. Dawn will come soon enough, and with it, Blackwood." Sarah settled against the cold stone, drawing Travis's coat around her shoulders at his insistence. Despite her exhaustion, sleep seemed impossible. Every sound from the forest triggered memories of her captivity, of Blackwood's unpredictable rages, his cryptic mutterings about the others, his promises of what would happen if she tried to escape. She studied Travis's silhouette against the night sky. A stranger who had risked everything for her. A man whose own demons seemed to drive him forward as surely as Blackwood's madness drove their pursuer. "What happens if we reach the settlement?" she asked softly. "When," Travis corrected. "When we reach it. You'll be safe there. And you." Travis didn't answer, his attention fixed on something only he could see in the darkness beyond their shelter. Dawn broke with reluctant gray light filtering through the lingering clouds. Travis had maintained his vigil through the night, allowing Sarah only brief glimpses of him drifting into shallow sleep before jerking awake, hand instinctively reaching for his rifle. The Winchester .73 never strayed far from his grasp. Sarah had noticed the notches carved into its stock, 16 of them, each one representing a life taken. She wondered what stories those notches could tell, what circumstances had forced this quiet man to violence. "Storm's past," Travis said, his voice rough with fatigue. "But it's left the creek too high to cross. We'll need to follow it down further." Sarah nodded, attempting to stand. Her muscles protested after the previous day's exertion, but she found herself stronger than expected. "How's your wound?" Travis tested his side with careful fingers. "Clean enough. Won't slow us down." They emerged from their shelter into a world transformed by the storm. Broken branches littered the ground, and the path they'd followed was partially washed away in places. Caesar greeted Travis with a soft nickering, having found shelter beneath a stand of pines. "Good boy," Travis murmured, checking the horse for injuries before securing their few possessions. He helped Sarah mount, then led Caesar on foot, unwilling to burden the animal with their combined weight on the treacherous terrain. They traveled in silence for the first hour, both scanning the forest for signs of pursuit. The mining road had deteriorated to little more than a game trail, winding precariously along the mountainside. "There was a settlement at the base of this mountain," Travis said eventually. "Abandoned now, but might have structures still standing. We could rest there, gather supplies." "How far?" "Few hours' walk if the path holds." Sarah watched him navigate the difficult trail, noting how he tested each section before leading Caesar forward. "You know these mountains well." "Worked as a guide after the war," Travis replied. "Before settling at the Diamond Creek Ranch." It was the first personal detail he'd offered without prompting. Sarah sensed there was more, much more, behind those simple words. "Was that your home?" "Diamond Creek." Travis's shoulders tensed slightly. For a time, something in his tone discouraged further questions. They continued downward, the morning warming around them as the sun occasionally broke through the clouds. Twice Travis halted abruptly, studying the ground or listening to sounds Sarah couldn't detect. Each time, after a long moment, he would nod to himself and continue. Near midday, they reached a relatively flat area where the mining road joined what had once been a more substantial trail. The remnants of wooden structures, loading platforms for or carts, suggested they were nearing the abandoned settlement. "We should rest," Sarah suggested, noting Travis's increasingly careful movements. His wound was troubling him more than he admitted. He helped her down from Caesar, then untied his canteen from the saddle. "Drink sparingly. We'll refill when we reach the settlement." Sarah sipped the lukewarm water, watching as Travis scanned their back trail. "Do you think we've lost them?" "No." The answer came without hesitation. "Blackwood knows these mountains. He's just being cautious, same as us." "You sound certain." Travis met her gaze. "Men like him don't give up what they think belongs to them. Not without a fight." Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the midday warmth. "You've known men like him before." It wasn't a question, but Travis nodded anyway. "War shows you the worst in men. And the best." He paused, then added quietly, "Mostly the worst." "Is that where you learned to track?" "To fight." Travis checked his rifle, a gesture that seemed more habit than necessity. "Learned tracking from my father. He was half Cherokee." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Fighting I learned everywhere else." The sudden crack of a branch snapping brought them both to attention. Travis motioned for silence, moving to position himself between Sarah and the sound. His rifle came up smoothly, aiming into the dense undergrowth. A deer emerged, cautious and alert. It froze upon seeing them, then bounded away in a flash of white tail and flashing hooves. Sarah released her breath. "Just wildlife. This time." Travis lowered his rifle but remained watchful. "We should move. Settlement's not far now." They continued along the widening trail, the forest gradually thinning as they descended. An hour later, the first buildings of the abandoned mining camp came into view, a cluster of weathered structures nestled in a small valley. "Bald Mountain," Travis said, naming the settlement. "Played out 15 years ago. Silver mine couldn't compete with the bigger strikes." The camp consisted of perhaps 20 buildings in various states of decay. Most had collapsed under the weight of mountain winters, but a few sturdier structures remained intact. Travis led them toward what appeared to have been the mine office, a 2-story building with boarded windows and a relatively sound roof. "Wait here," he instructed, handing Caesar's reins to Sarah. He approached the building cautiously, rifle ready, and disappeared inside. Sarah studied their surroundings while she waited. The valley offered both shelter and vulnerability, easier to defend than the exposed mountainside, but with fewer escape routes if Blackwood found them. She wondered how long they would need to hide, how far they would need to run before safety became more than a distant hope. Travis emerged from the building, nodding. "It's secure. Previous occupants left some supplies. We can rest here tonight." "Occupants? I thought you said the town was abandoned." "Trappers, most likely. They use these old settlements during winter months." He helped her dismount, steadying her when her legs threatened to buckle. "Someone was here last season. Left behind some useful items." The abandoned mine office offered more comfort than Sarah had expected. The main room contained a pot-bellied stove, a desk stripped of drawers, and several wooden chairs. A narrow staircase led to a second floor with 2 small rooms, one with a rusted metal bed frame, the other empty save for shelves lined with dusty jars and mining equipment. Travis secured Caesar in a lean-to behind the building, then spent an hour methodically checking the surrounding structures. He returned with an armload of supplies, canned goods, matches, a few threadbare blankets, and a hand-drawn map he'd found tacked to a wall in what had once been the assayer's office. "Settlement's bigger than I thought," he said, spreading the map on the desk. 24 buildings, plus mine entrances here and here. His finger traced the faded lines. Previous occupants marked water sources and game trails. Sarah studied the map, noting how methodically it had been created. Whoever drew this knew the area well. Trappers are thorough, Travis agreed. Their lives depend on knowing escape routes, resources. He folded the map carefully and tucked it into his shirt pocket. This gives us an advantage if Blackwood finds us. When, Sarah corrected, echoing his words from the previous night. When he finds us. Travis's eyes met hers, acknowledging the truth of her statement. We'll be ready. He moved to the stove, checking its flue before starting a small fire. The risk of smoke being spotted was outweighed by their need for warmth and hot food. Sarah watched him work, noting the efficiency of his movements despite his injured side. You should rest, she said. I can keep watch for a while. Travis paused, clearly unaccustomed to accepting help. After a moment, he nodded. Wake me if you hear anything unusual. He handed her his pistol. You know how to use this? Sarah shook her head. Simple enough. He showed her how to check if it was loaded, how to aim, how to steady her hands against the recoil. Point and squeeze, don't pull. It'll kick harder than you expect. The weight of the weapon felt strange in Sarah's hands, both terrifying and reassuring. I've never fired a gun before. Hope you won't have to. Travis moved to position himself on a blanket near the door, where he could wake quickly if needed. But if Blackwood comes through that door instead of me, don't hesitate. Sarah nodded, her throat tight. The implications of their situation, that she might need to take a life to preserve her own, settled over her like a heavy cloak. Travis fell asleep almost immediately, his body surrendering to exhaustion while his features remained vigilant even in repose. Sarah studied him in the fading afternoon light. The lines around his eyes spoke of hard years and harder decisions. His beard couldn't hide the scar that ran along his jaw, nor could his careful movements completely mask old injuries that had never properly healed. She moved to the window, watching the abandoned settlement as shadows lengthened across the valley. In the distance, thunder rumbled, another storm approaching. She thought of Blackwood pursuing them through the wilderness, driven by possession and rage. The ghost of his hands on her skin made her shudder. Hours passed. Sarah heated one of the canned goods, beans with something that might generously be called meat, and ate mechanically, her body accepting nourishment while her mind remained focused on the darkening forest beyond the window. When Travis finally stirred, night had fallen completely. He woke without transition, instantly alert. Storm's coming, Sarah said. I haven't seen or heard anything unusual. Travis joined her at the window, his presence solid and reassuring beside her. You should sleep now. I'll take watch. I'm not sure I can. She handed back his pistol. Every time I close my eyes, I see him. Travis accepted the weapon, checking it automatically. That fades, eventually. Does it? Or do you just get better at pretending it has? The question hung between them, neither comfortable nor accusatory, simply honest. Travis's silence was answer enough. I was a teacher, Sarah said after a moment. I taught children their letters and numbers, geography and history. I knew nothing about men like Blackwood. Nothing about a world where people chain others for their pleasure. Most don't, Travis replied. That's as it should be. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the valley. In that instant, Sarah saw something in Travis's eyes, not pity, but understanding. Recognition of a journey she was just beginning, one he had traveled long ago. Why did you really come looking for me? She asked suddenly. The truth. Travis turned back to the window, his profile stern in the dim light. Man at the trading post mentioned a woman in trouble. That's all. And that was enough? To risk your life for a stranger? His hands tightened almost imperceptibly on his rifle. Some debts can't be repaid. Can only be passed forward. The storm broke over them, rain lashing against the boarded windows. Sarah wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, suddenly aware of how close they stood, how intimate their conversation had become in the darkness. You should rest, Travis said again, more gently this time. Tomorrow will be difficult. Sarah nodded, moving to the blanket he'd arranged near the stove. As she settled, a thought occurred to her. What was her name? Travis remained at the window, his back to her. For so long that Sarah thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible over the storm. Elizabeth. My wife's name was Elizabeth. Morning arrived with hesitant sunlight filtering through the boarded windows. The storm had passed during the night, leaving behind a fresh, clean scent that permeated even the musty interior of the mine office. Sarah woke to find Travis checking his rifle, his movements deliberate and practiced. We should leave soon, he said, noting her open eyes. Storm will have washed away our tracks, but Blackwood knows these mountains. He'll check the obvious shelters. Sarah nodded, rising stiffly. Each day brought improvement to her weakened muscles, but the journey had taken its toll. How far to the settlement? 2 days, maybe 3. Travis hesitated. There's something you should see first. He led her outside, around the back of the building. There, nestled beneath a gnarled pine, stood a simple wooden cross. No name marked the weathered wood, only a date carved near the base, April 17, 1870. Found it yesterday, Travis said quietly. Appears someone was laid to rest here. Sarah studied the solitary marker. 5 years ago. Do you think it was one of the trappers? Possibly. Travis's gaze lingered on the cross. Or someone passing through like us. The implication hung between them. This wilderness had claimed lives before. It might claim theirs as well. We won't end up like that, Sarah said with more conviction than she felt. We'll reach the settlement. Travis nodded, though whether in agreement or acknowledgement of her determination wasn't clear. They returned to the office in silence, gathering their meager supplies for the journey ahead. As Travis packed, Sarah noticed him wincing when he reached for items on the higher shelves. Your wound needs attention, she said. Travis shook his head. It's healing. Let me see. After a moment's hesitation, he lifted his shirt. The bullet graze had scabbed over, but the skin around it was red and warm to the touch. Not infected yet, but headed that way. There's whiskey in those supplies, Sarah said. And I found clean cloth upstairs. Sit down. To her surprise, Travis complied without argument. Perhaps he recognized the teacher's tone in her voice, the one that brooked no opposition. Sarah cleaned the wound as gently as she could, though Travis showed no reaction beyond a slight tightening. Around his eyes. Elizabeth, Sarah said as she worked. Was she from the West? Travis remained still beneath her ministrations. Boston, originally. Came out to teach, like you. And you met. Outside a saloon in Helena. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I was working as a guide. She was lost, looking for the schoolhouse. Thought I was a vagrant. Were you? Close enough. The smile faded. She saw something in me worth saving. Never understood what. Sarah applied the whiskey-soaked cloth to his wound. Travis inhaled sharply but didn't pull away. What happened to her? Sarah asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Fire. The word emerged clipped, final. Diamond Creek Ranch, 1870. Elizabeth and our daughter, Grace. I was away, guiding a hunting party. His voice remained steady, but his hands had clenched into fists. Came back to ashes. April 17, 1870. The date on the cross outside. Sarah's hands stilled on the bandage. That's not Elizabeth out there, Travis said, reading her thoughts. Never found them in the ashes. Never had anything to bury. The admission hung between them, raw and painful. Sarah finished bandaging his side in silence, understanding now the depth of the debt he felt he was repaying by rescuing her. I'm sorry, she said finally, the words wholly inadequate. Travis pulled his shirt down, the brief moment of openness already closing. We should move out. Daylight's wasting. They left the mine office as they'd found it, erasing signs of their presence. Travis had replenished their supplies from the trapper's cache, leaving behind the only item of value he carried, a silver pocket watch with a damaged face, as payment. The map proved invaluable as they navigated the valley. Travis led them along game trails marked by the previous occupants, keeping to cover whenever possible. Sarah found herself watching him with new understanding, seeing not just the careful vigilance of an experienced frontiersman, but the actions of a man who had lost everything once and would not risk losing again. "The settlement we're heading for?" she asked as they paused at a creek crossing. "What's it called?" "Redemption," Travis replied, the irony not lost on either of them. "Small place. Sheriff's reliable from what I've heard." "And after we reach it? What then?" Travis tested the creek's depth with a branch. "Sheriff will organize a posse. Hunt down Blackwood. You'll be safe. And you'll go with them? After Blackwood?" He didn't answer immediately, helping her across the slippery stones. When they reached the other side, he finally spoke. "Some men need finding." The cold certainty in his voice sent a shiver through Sarah. She recalled the notches on his rifle stock, 16 lives already claimed. Blackwood might soon be the 17th. "There's another way," she said. "Justice doesn't have to mean more killing." Travis adjusted Caesar's saddle, checking the cinch. "Justice is a luxury, Miss Lawson. Safety comes first." "Sarah," she corrected. "After all this, I think you should use my name." He paused, then nodded. "Sarah." The name sounded different in his voice, softer somehow, despite his rough tone. They continued through the forest, following the map's guidance. Neither mentioned the cross again, but its presence remained with them, a silent reminder of what was at stake, and how quickly life could turn to memory in these unforgiving mountains. They departed the abandoned mining settlement as the morning sun climbed above the eastern ridges. Travis had chosen a route that followed the valley floor before cutting through a narrow pass, a longer path than a direct descent would have been, but one that offered more cover and easier terrain for Sarah's still recovering strength. Caesar carried their supplies, Travis leading him by the reins while Sarah walked alongside. Her body was gradually remembering its former capabilities, though each day's journey left her exhausted. Still, she refused Travis's repeated offers to ride. "You need the horse fresh in case we need to move quickly," she insisted. "I can manage." Travis didn't argue, but she noticed how he adjusted their pace to accommodate her, how he selected rest points with an eye toward her comfort rather than optimal defensive positions. His consideration was offered without comment or expectation, a quiet kindness that touched her more deeply than grand gestures might have. Near midday, they stopped beside a small stream. While Travis refilled their canteens, Sarah discovered a weathered wooden box half buried beneath fallen leaves. Inside was a tarnished music box, its mechanism intact despite years of exposure. "Look at this," she called to Travis, turning the small key. The melody that emerged was halting but recognizable, "Beautiful Dreamer," a song her father had often hummed while working in his study. Travis approached, his expression softening at the unexpected sound of music in the wilderness. "Strange thing to find out here." "Someone's treasure," Sarah mused, closing the lid gently. "Left behind or lost." "Take it if you want," Travis suggested. "Previous owners long gone." Sarah shook her head, returning the box to its resting place. "It belongs here now. Part of the mountain story." They continued their journey, the melody lingering in Sarah's mind. It sparked memories of her childhood home in Boston, the orderly rooms, the predictable routines, the safety she had taken for granted. That world seemed impossibly distant now. "You were a scout during the war," she said, recalling something he'd mentioned earlier. "That's where you learned to move like this, always aware, always watching." Travis nodded. "Union Army, 1862 to 65. Served under General Thomas in Tennessee, then Sherman in Georgia." "The March to the Sea?" Sarah had taught her students about that devastating campaign. "Among others." His tone discouraged further inquiry, but after a moment, he continued. "War's not like the history books tell it. Not heroic. Just men doing terrible things because someone with more stripes told them to." "Yet you wear a Union belt buckle," Sarah observed. "Still." Travis glanced down, as if surprised to find the tarnished eagle still adorning his belt. "Habit, I suppose. Or reminder." "Of what?" He was silent for several paces before answering. "That even in the worst of times, fighting for the right reasons matters." They emerged from a stand of pines to find themselves looking down into a broader valley. In the distance, perhaps 2 days' journey away, The faint outline of buildings was visible, the settlement of Redemption. "We'll reach it by tomorrow evening if we push," Travis said, studying the terrain ahead. "But we'll be exposed on those lower slopes." Sarah followed his gaze, noting the decreasing forest cover as the mountains gave way to foothills and eventually the valley floor. "Blackwood could see us coming. If he's watching, yes." Travis adjusted his hat against the midday sun. "We'll stay in the tree line as long as possible, approach after dark." As they continued, Travis began sharing more of his knowledge, showing Sarah how to identify edible plants, how to move quietly through undergrowth, how to read the subtle signs of wildlife and weather. She proved an apt pupil, her teacher's mind quickly grasping the principles behind each lesson. "You'd have made a good scout," Travis remarked after she correctly identified deer tracks and their direction of travel. "High praise coming from you." Sarah smiled, pleased by his approval. "Just observation." But there was a warmth in his voice that hadn't been there before. They made camp that evening beneath a rock overhang, with a small fire carefully positioned to minimize visible smoke. Travis cleaned his rifle while Sarah prepared a simple meal from their supplies. The domesticity of the scene struck her as oddly comforting, despite their circumstances. "When you reach Redemption," Travis said as they ate, "what will you do? Continue to your teaching position?" Sarah considered the question. "I don't know. The school in Helena might have found another teacher by now." She stared into the small fire. "Everything I plan seems distant. Like it happened to someone else." "It gets easier," Travis offered. "Finding your way back to yourself after." He didn't finish the thought. "After trauma," Sarah supplied. "We can name it Travis. What Blackwood did, what he tried to do, was steal my life from me. Not just my freedom, but my sense of who I am." Travis's eyes met hers across the fire, understanding in their depths. "And has he succeeded?" "No." The certainty in her voice surprised even her. "He took weeks from me. He left scars I'll carry. But I'm still Sarah Lawson." She straightened her shoulders. "I'm still here." Travis nodded, something like admiration flickering across his features. "Yes. You are." Later, as Sarah settled into her blanket for the night, she found herself watching Travis as he took the first watch. The firelight played across his weathered features, highlighting the complexity there, the hardness born of violence and loss, but also the capacity for kindness she'd witnessed repeatedly over their days together. "Travis," she said softly, "thank you. Not just for the rescue, but for—" She gestured vaguely, unable to articulate exactly what she meant. "Get some rest, Sarah," he replied, his voice gentle. "Dawn comes early." As she drifted toward sleep, Sarah realized she was no longer afraid of closing her eyes. The nightmares that had plagued her since her captivity seemed held at bay by Travis's vigilant presence, and perhaps by her own growing strength. Dawn brought with it a sense of anticipation. From their elevated position, they could see Redemption in the distance, still a day's journey away, but close enough to seem tangible rather than merely theoretical. Sarah found herself studying the settlement through Travis's field glass, trying to imagine walking those streets as a free woman again. "It's smaller than I expected," she remarked, returning the glass to Travis. "Most places out here are," he replied. 20, maybe 30 buildings. Church, sheriff's office, general store. The usual." As they prepared to break camp, Travis discovered a weathered wanted poster tucked into a hollow tree, likely left by a passing lawman for any trappers or prospectors to see. The poster showed a hard-faced man with a distinctive scar across his cheek, wanted for murder in 3 territories. "Jacob Reeves," Travis read aloud. $500, dead or alive. Sarah peered at the rough illustration. "Do you think he's one of Blackwood's men?" Travis studied the image with narrowed eyes. "Description matches one of the men I glimpsed during our escape." He folded the poster and tucked it into his saddlebag. "Blackwood's running with dangerous company." "As if he wasn't dangerous enough alone," Sarah murmured. They set out along a ridge that offered both a clear view of their surroundings and good cover from anyone watching from below. Travis moved with increased vigilance, frequently stopping to scan the terrain behind and ahead of them. His tension was palpable, communicating itself to both Sarah and Caesar, who flicked his ears nervously at every unusual sound. By midday, they had descended to a point where the forest began to thin. Patches of meadow interrupted the tree cover, forcing them to move more cautiously. During one such crossing, Travis suddenly raised his hand, signaling for Sarah to stop. "What is it?" she whispered, frozen in place. Travis pointed to the ground several yards ahead. "Tracks fresh. 3 men, one leading a horse." Sarah felt her heart quicken. "Blackwood? Can't be sure." Travis knelt to examine the tracks more closely. "But they're heading in the same direction we are. Toward redemption. Why would he go there? He'd be risking capture." Travis's expression darkened. "Unless he's not planning to enter the settlement. Just waiting for us on the approach." The implications settled over them like a shadow. Their destination, so close now, had suddenly become a potential trap. "Options?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite her fear. Travis considered for a moment. "We can try to circle wide around these tracks, take a longer route. Or push forward but change our timing, travel by night instead of day for the final approach." "Which is safer?" "Neither," he admitted. "Both have risks." Sarah studied the distant settlement, then the surrounding terrain. "We circle. I'd rather arrive later than not at all." Travis nodded in agreement, leading them back into the tree line to plan their new route. The detour would add hours to their journey, meaning another night in the wilderness, but better that than walking into an ambush. They traveled in tense silence for the remainder of the day, each lost in their own thoughts. As the sun began to set, Travis selected a defensible position for their camp, a small hollow surrounded by dense brush, virtually invisible unless one stumbled directly upon it. "No fire tonight," he said as they settled in. "Too risky." Sarah nodded, wrapping her blanket tightly around her shoulders against the mountain chill. They shared a cold meal of jerky and hardtack, their shoulders occasionally brushing in the small space. Despite the danger that had prompted their cautious approach, Sarah found herself oddly content in this moment of quiet companionship. "What will you do?" she asked softly. "After redemption, after Blackwood is captured?" Travis didn't answer immediately, his gaze fixed on the darkening sky visible through the branches above. "Haven't thought that far ahead." "You must have some idea." "Return to guiding? Find another ranch?" He shook his head slightly. "Been drifting 5 years. Hard to imagine stopping." "You had a home once. With Elizabeth and Grace." The mention of his family's names didn't trigger the shutdown she had expected. Instead, Travis seemed to consider her words carefully. "That life feels like someone else's memory now," he finally said. "Something I watched happen to another man." "I understand that feeling," Sarah replied. "After Blackwood, after what happened in that cabin, I sometimes feel like the woman who taught school in Boston died there. Like I'm someone new now, wearing her face." Travis turned to her, really looking at her for the first time since their conversation began. "No," he said with unexpected conviction. "You're still her. Changed maybe. Stronger in some ways. But still Sarah Lawson." The certainty in his voice warmed her more than any fire could have. "Then perhaps you're still the man who made a home at Diamond Creek Ranch. Just changed. Just waiting to remember how to stay in one place." Travis's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Maybe." He looked away, back to the stars. "Get some rest. I'll take first watch." As Sarah settled onto her blanket, she found herself studying Travis's profile in the fading light. The hard lines of his face, softened now by something that might have been contemplation, or perhaps hope. She wondered what it would be like to know this man in a different context, not as rescuer and rescued, but simply as two people finding their way forward after loss. The thought followed her into sleep, bringing with it dreams not of chains and captivity, but of possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to consider until now. Sarah woke to Travis's hand on her shoulder, his touch light but urgent. The pre-dawn light barely penetrated their sheltered hollow, but she could see enough to recognize the tension in his posture. "Someone's coming," he whispered, already gathering their few possessions. 3 riders moving slow. Searching. Sarah rose quickly, her body stiff from the cold night but her mind instantly alert. Weeks of captivity had taught her how quickly safety could turn to danger. How close? Quarter mile, maybe less. We need to move. Travis handed her the pistol he'd taught her to use days earlier. Remember what I showed you? The weight of the weapon was both reassuring and terrifying. Sarah tucked it into the waistband of the practical trousers she now wore, clothing Travis had found at the mining settlement to replace her tattered dress. The transformation from schoolteacher to frontier survivor was complete, at least in appearance. They slipped from their hiding place as silently as shadows, Travis leading Caesar by the reins with a hand over the horse's muzzle to quiet any nickering. The forest was still draped in half-darkness, the tree trunks spectral shapes in the gray dawn light. Travis guided them upslope rather than continuing toward redemption, a choice that surprised Sarah until she realized he was seeking the tactical advantage of higher ground. They moved as quickly as they dared, every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves sounding unnaturally loud in the quiet morning. A gunshot shattered the silence, the bullet splintering bark inches from Travis's head. He reacted instantly, pushing Sarah behind the shelter of a massive pine while drawing his rifle in one fluid motion. "Run," he urged, already sighting down the barrel. "Straight up the slope. I'll find you." "I won't leave you," Sarah protested, the pistol now in her trembling hand. "Not arguing this." Travis's voice held no room for debate. "Go. Now." Another shot rang out, closer this time. Sarah glimpsed movement among the trees below, men advancing in a loose line, using the forest for cover. With a final glance at Travis, she turned and ran, crouching low as he had taught her. Behind her, Travis's rifle cracked once, twice. A man's cry of pain told her at least one shot had found its mark. Then more gunfire erupted, the sound spurring her to greater speed despite her burning lungs and aching legs. Sarah climbed blindly, focused only on putting distance between herself and the gunfire. The slope grew steeper, the trees thinning as she ascended. Finally, gasping for breath, she took shelter behind a tumble of boulders and looked back the way she had come. The shooting had stopped. The forest below was silent save for the occasional call of a startled bird. Of Travis, there was no sign. Minutes stretched into an eternity as Sarah waited, the pistol clutched in her sweat-slicked palm. Had he been captured? Was Blackwood even now making his way toward her hiding place? A movement to her right sent her spinning, the pistol raised. Travis emerged from behind a stand of junipers, Caesar following behind. Relief flooded through her with such intensity that her knees nearly buckled. "You're alive," she breathed. "Two of them won't be saying the same." Travis's face was grim as he reached her side. Reeves was one of them. The third, Blackwood, got away. "You're certain?" Travis nodded. "Saw him clearly. He's heading back toward redemption." Sarah holstered the pistol with shaking hands. "What now?" "We keep moving. Different route." Travis studied the terrain, then pointed to a ridge line above them. "Over that, then circle back toward the settlement from the north. It's longer, but Blackwood will be watching the direct approaches." As they climbed, Sarah noticed Travis favoring his left arm. "You're hurt." "Just a graze," he dismissed, though the spreading bloodstain on his sleeve suggested otherwise. At the ridge top, they paused to rest and allow Travis to bind his wound. A bullet had carved a deep furrow across his upper arm. Sarah insisted on helping, tearing strips from her spare shirt to create a proper bandage. "That's the second time you've been shot because of me," she noted as she worked. "Rather me than you," Travis replied simply. Sarah secured the bandage, her fingers lingering briefly on his arm. "I don't share that preference." Their eyes met, something unspoken passing between them. For a moment, the danger they faced seemed to recede, leaving only this connection, fragile but growing stronger with each shared hardship. Travis was the first to look away. "We should keep moving." From their elevated position, they could see both redemption in the distance and the winding path they had traveled. The journey had changed them both in ways neither had anticipated. Sarah was no longer just the refined schoolteacher from Boston, nor was Travis merely the hardened drifter he'd been when they met. They had become something else through their shared ordeal, partners, perhaps, or something more complex that neither was ready to name. As they prepared to descend the far side of the ridge, a movement in the valley below caught Sarah's attention. A lone rider was moving at speed toward redemption, the horse pushed to a dangerous pace over the rough terrain. Blackwood, Travis confirmed, watching through his field glass. He's making for the settlement ahead of us. But he risks capture there. Travis lowered the glass, his expression troubled. Unless he has friends in redemption, people who might help him set a trap. The realization settled over them like a cold shadow. Their destination, their supposed sanctuary, might already be compromised. We need to know what we're walking into, Travis said, his tactical mind working through the implications. We'll approach after dark, observe before making contact. Sarah nodded her agreement, trying to ignore the fear that threatened to engulf her. They had come so far, endured so much, only to find that safety might still be beyond their reach. As they continued their journey, the torn sleeve of Sarah's former dress fluttered from Travis's saddlebag, a reminder of her captivity, but also of how far she had come from the woman in chains Travis had discovered in that isolated cabin. Dark clouds gathered as they made their way along the northern ridge, the promise of another storm hanging heavy in the air. The temperature dropped steadily, and a gusting wind carried the scent of rain. Travis studied the sky with concern. Storm's coming fast. We need shelter before it hits. Sarah nodded, her eyes scanning the rocky terrain. Not much cover up here. They had been traveling for hours along the exposed ridgeline, deliberately keeping to higher ground to avoid detection. Now, with the weather turning, that tactical decision threatened to leave them vulnerable to the elements. There's something ahead, Travis said, pointing to a dark opening in the rock face about 100 yards distant. Might be a cave. They approached cautiously, Travis leading with his rifle ready. The opening proved to be the entrance to a shallow cave, not deep enough to be called a mine, but sufficient to provide shelter from the coming storm. Wait here, Travis instructed, handing Caesar's reins to Sarah before disappearing into the darkness. Sarah watched the gathering storm while she waited, the wind whipping her hair across her face. The first heavy raindrops were beginning to fall when Travis emerged. It's clear, he reported. Goes back about 30 feet. Dry enough. They led Caesar inside just as the storm broke in earnest, rain lashing the mountainside with unexpected ferocity. The cave entrance framed the downpour like a window to a gray, water-streaked world. Inside, Travis lit a small fire using dry brush that had collected near the entrance. The flames illuminated weathered walls etched with symbols, handprints, spirals, and animal figures drawn in faded ochre. Native markings, Travis observed, studying the primitive artwork. Old ones. Sarah examined a carved stone marker set into the floor near the back of the cave. This place was sacred to them. Shoshone most likely. They believed caves connected to the spirit world. Travis ran his fingers over the ancient handprints. My father spoke of such places. The fire cast dancing shadows across the walls, bringing the ancient artwork to life. Despite their predicament, Sarah felt a sense of wonder at this connection to the past, at hands reaching across time to create something enduring. It's beautiful, she murmured. Travis nodded, a rare moment of appreciation crossing his weathered features. The people who made these are long gone. But something of them remains. They settled by the fire, sharing the last of their provisions as the storm raged outside. The cave proved larger than it had initially appeared, with several chambers branching off from the main cavern. In one, they discovered a pool of clear water fed by a spring trickling from the rock ceiling. Look at this, Sarah called, her voice echoing slightly as she ventured further into the cave system. Crystal formations glittered in the light of the small torch Travis had fashioned, transforming the rough stone into a treasury of natural wonders. Be careful, Travis warned, following behind her. Ground might not be stable. His words proved prophetic. As Sarah stepped forward to examine a particularly beautiful formation, a section of the cave floor gave way beneath her with a sickening crack. She screamed, instinctively reaching for Travis as she began to fall. His hand caught hers, but the collapsing section was too large. For one suspended moment, their eyes met, hers wide with terror, his with desperate determination. Then the rock crumbled completely, and Sarah plunged downward, Travis's outstretched hand the last thing she saw before darkness engulfed her. The fall was shorter than she had feared, perhaps 15 feet, but landed her hard on a dirt and rock floor. Pain shot through her ankle as she crumpled in a heap, dust and small stones raining down around her. "Sarah!" Travis's voice echoed from above. "Sarah, can you hear me?" She coughed, the dust thick in her lungs. "I'm here. I'm alive. Are you hurt?" Sarah assessed herself in the near darkness. "My ankle, twisted or sprained. Otherwise just bruised." She could see a faint glow from above, Travis's torch, held over the ragged hole she'd fallen through. The opening was too high to reach, the walls of her prison smooth and unclimbable. "I'll find a way down to you," Travis called. "There must be another passage." "Be careful," Sarah urged. The floor could give way again. As her eyes adjusted to the dimness, Sarah realized she wasn't in complete darkness. A faint, phosphorescent glow emanated from patches of fungus growing on the cave walls, providing just enough light to make out her surroundings. She was in a lower chamber of the cave system, larger than the one above. The air was cool and damp, with the sound of running water somewhere in the darkness. As she attempted to stand, testing her injured ankle, a noise from the shadows froze her in place, not water, but breathing. Human breathing. "Who's there?" she called, her voice steadier than she felt. Silence, then a shuffling movement. From the darkness emerged a figure, slight, female, hardly more than a girl. Her clothes were torn and filthy, her face streaked with dirt and fear. "Are you real?" the girl whispered, her voice cracked from disuse. "Or am I dreaming again?" Sarah stared in disbelief. "I'm real. Who are you?" The girl took a hesitant step closer, her movements wary as a wild animal's. Emma Sullivan." Her eyes darted to the hole in the ceiling, then back to Sarah. "Did he send you?" "Blackwood." The name hit Sarah like a physical blow. "Blackwood? You know him?" Emma's laugh held no humor, only a bitter recognition. "Everyone here knows Blackwood." "Everyone," Sarah repeated, confusion giving way to horrified understanding. "There are others?" "There were." Emma gestured to the darkness behind her. "I'm the only one who got away. The only one still alive." Above them, Travis's voice called down, "Sarah? Who are you talking to?" Sarah looked up at the distant opening, then back to the traumatized girl before her. Whatever horror she had endured in that cabin, she realized, was only a small part of a much larger nightmare, one that had claimed multiple victims before her. "Travis," she called back, her voice shaking, "we're not alone down here." Emma Sullivan kept her distance as Sarah explained the situation to Travis. The girl couldn't be more than 17, with dark hair matted into tangles and eyes that held the wariness of someone who had seen too much suffering to trust easily. "I'm going to find a way down," Travis called from above. "The passage looks like it continues deeper. There might be a connection to your level." "Be careful," Sarah replied, before turning her attention back to Emma. "My name is Sarah Lawson. The man up there is Travis Reid. He rescued me from Blackwood 3 days ago." Emma's eyes widened. "You were at the cabin? The one in the old mining camp?" Sarah nodded. 37 days. Until Travis broke down the door." "I was at the main camp," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "With the others." "Others?" Sarah moved closer, careful not to startle the girl. "How many?" 3 women when I escaped. There were more before." Emma's gaze dropped to the cave floor. "Some died. Some he sold." The revelation struck Sarah like a physical blow. "Sold? You mean to men who run houses in mining towns? Or to anyone with enough money who wants?" Emma couldn't finish the sentence. Sarah fought the wave of nausea that threatened to overwhelm her. "How long have you been in these caves?" 2 days, I think. It's hard to tell time down here." Emma gestured to her leg, where a crude bandage fashioned from torn cloth covered a wound. "I got caught in one of his traps when I was running. Tore my leg open pretty bad. Found the cave entrance and crawled inside to hide. Sarah examined the injury, carefully unwrapping the filthy bandage. The gash was deep and angry-looking, the edges beginning to show signs of infection. This needs proper cleaning and medicine, she said. But first, let me help you move somewhere more comfortable. With Sarah's support, Emma hobbled to a drier section of the chamber where a natural rock shelf provided a place to sit. As Sarah tended to the wound with water from her canteen, Emma gradually revealed more of her story. She had been traveling with her family from their farm in Idaho to visit relatives in Montana when their wagon was attacked. Her parents were killed immediately. Emma was taken to Blackwood's camp, a collection of cabins hidden deep in the wilderness where he kept his victims before selling them. How did you escape? Sarah asked, tearing a strip from her shirt to create a clean bandage. One of the guards got careless, Emma replied. Left a door unlocked during the storm 2 nights ago. I ran as far as I could before my leg got caught in the trap. As Emma spoke, Sarah noticed markings on the cave wall behind her, crude drawings etched into the stone. Moving closer, she realized they were a map of sorts, showing tunnels and chambers with small symbols scattered throughout. Did you make these? She asked. Emma shook her head. They were already here when I found this place. I think other women might have hidden here before. Running from him. Sarah studied the rough map, hope kindling as she traced what appeared to be a route through the cave system. This could show a way out. A path that connects to the lower valley. I tried to follow it, Emma said. But my leg. She gestured helplessly at her injury. From somewhere in the darkness came the sound of disturbed rocks. Both women tensed, but Emma relaxed slightly when Travis's voice called out. Sarah? Are you down this passage? Here. Sarah called back. We're here. Travis emerged from a narrow tunnel, ducking to avoid the low ceiling. His clothes were dusty, and a fresh scratch marked his cheek where sharp rock had caught him. Relief washed over his features at the sight of Sarah, quickly followed by surprise as he noticed Emma. Travis, this is Emma Sullivan, Sarah said. She escaped from Blackwood's camp 2 days ago. Travis assessed the girl with a careful gaze. You're injured. Emma nodded, intimidated by this stern-faced man with a rifle slung across his back. She needs medical attention, Sarah explained. And she has information about Blackwood's operation. There are other women being held at his main camp. Travis's expression hardened. Where is this camp? About half a day's journey northwest of here, Emma replied. Hidden in a box canyon. You'd never find it unless you knew where to look. How many men guarding it? 5, usually. Sometimes more when they're moving. Emma swallowed hard. When they're moving merchandise. The word hung in the air between them, its implications too horrible to elaborate upon. Travis turned to examine the cave drawings Sarah had discovered. This shows the cave system? Sarah nodded. I think it was made by previous escapees. It might show a way out. Travis studied the crude map, his experienced eyes finding meaning in the simple lines and symbols. This mark here, I think it indicates an exit. And these could be water sources. He pointed to circular markings scattered throughout the drawing. If this is accurate, there's a way out that leads to the valley floor, much closer to redemption than our original route. We could get help, Sarah said. For Emma and for the others. Travis's jaw tightened. The women at Blackwood's camp may not have that much time. If he knows one escaped, he might move them, or worse. The implication hung heavy in the damp cave air. Sarah looked from Travis to Emma, understanding the impossible choice before them. Continuing to redemption meant safety and proper care for Emma, but potential death for the women still captive. Attempting a rescue meant risking all their lives. We have to try, Emma said, breaking the silence. Her voice trembled but held conviction. I can show you the way to the camp. The guard patterns. Everything. Travis and Sarah exchanged a look, a silent communication born of their days together. Finally, Travis nodded. First, we need to get out of these caves, he said. Then we'll make a plan. As he helped Emma to her feet, Sarah noticed something tucked into the girl's tattered boot, a folded piece of paper. Emma saw her looking and carefully extracted it. I took this from his office before I ran, she explained, unfolding what proved to be a crude map drawn on yellowed paper. It shows all his camps, the routes they use, everything. Travis took the map with careful hands, his expression shifting as he grasped its significance. This is evidence. Enough to bring the territorial marshal down on Blackwood's entire operation. Hope, fragile but undeniable, bloomed in Sarah's chest for the first time since her ordeal began. Perhaps their nightmare could end not just for them, but for all of Blackwood's victims. Perhaps something like justice was possible after all. Navigating the cave system proved challenging. Travis led the way, a torch in one hand and his Winchester in the other, following the crude map etched on the cave wall. Sarah supported Emma, whose injured legs slowed their progress but whose determination never wavered. The passage narrowed in places, forcing them to crawl through tight spaces where the rough stones scraped against their backs and shoulders. In other sections, the ceiling soared away into darkness, creating vast chambers where their voices echoed like ghostly whispers. The women who drew this map, Sarah said as they paused to rest in one such chamber. Do you think they made it out alive? Emma touched the wall drawings with reverent fingers. I have to believe they did. That they found freedom. Travis said nothing, but Sarah noticed him pull a silver pocket compass from his coat, a memento she'd seen him consult before. The face was cracked, the hands frozen at 10:17, but he studied it as if it still functioned before returning it to his pocket. It was Elizabeth's, he explained, catching Sarah's questioning gaze. A wedding gift from her father. The simple admission, offered without prompting, spoke volumes about how much had changed between them since their journey began. They continued deeper into the cave system, following passages that twisted and descended. Water dripped from unseen sources, creating slick patches on the stone floor. The air grew cooler, charged with mineral scents and the faint mustiness of undisturbed earth. Should be an exit ahead, Travis said, consulting the wall map one last time before they left its guidance behind. If the drawing is accurate. The passage they followed eventually widened, the floor sloping upward. A faint light appeared in the distance, not daylight, but a different quality of darkness that suggested an opening to the night sky. There, Travis pointed, quickening his pace. The cave mouth opened onto a forested hillside, the night air fresh and cool after the stale dampness of the underground passages. Stars shone overhead, suggesting the storm had passed while they traveled beneath the earth. Travis extinguished their torch, allowing their eyes to adjust to the natural darkness. Where are we? Sarah asked, helping Emma to a fallen log where she could rest. Travis oriented himself using the stars, then checked the map Emma had stolen from Blackwood's office. About 3 miles east of Redemption, he determined. And, he paused, studying the map more carefully, less than 5 miles from Blackwood's main camp. The proximity was both a blessing and a curse. They were closer to potential rescue, but also to danger. We need to decide, Travis said, his voice low. Head straight to Redemption for help, or... The women at the camp might not have that long, Emma interrupted. Blackwood will know I escaped by now. He'll either move them or... She couldn't finish the thought. Sarah knelt beside the girl, examining her injured leg in the dim starlight. The makeshift bandage was soaked through with fresh blood from their difficult journey. You need a doctor, she said gently. This wound is getting worse. Emma shook her head stubbornly. The others need help more than I do. I can make it. Travis had moved a short distance away, scanning the forest with the practiced eye of a scout. He returned with a grim expression. We're not alone out here, he reported. Saw a torchlight through the trees to the north. Could be Blackwood's men searching. Sarah felt cold fear settle in her stomach. Can we reach Redemption without being seen? Possibly. But if Blackwood has men watching the approaches to town... Travis left the implication hanging. He has allies there, Emma confirmed. The sheriff takes money to look the other way. Some of the townspeople too. The revelation didn't surprise Sarah as much as it might have days earlier. Her ordeal had taught her how thin the veneer of civilization could be, how close to the surface predatory instincts lurked in some men. Then Redemption isn't safe, she concluded. Not until we know who to trust. Travis nodded, his expression grim but resolute. Which leaves us with one option. The camp, Emma said. We free the others ourselves. The audacity of the plan hung in the night air between them. 3 against at least 5 armed men. One of them an injured girl, another a woman only days removed from captivity herself. The odds were desperate at best. I should go alone, Travis said. Scout the camp, wait for an opportunity. No. Sarah's response was immediate and firm. We stay together. Sarah. I was their captive, she interrupted. I know how they think, how they operate. Emma knows the layout of the camp. You have the combat experience. We need each other. Travis studied her face in the starlight, seeing the determination there, the transformation from the broken woman he'd found in chains to this resolute survivor standing before him. After a long moment, he nodded. We'll need supplies, he said. Weapons. Caesar is still in the upper cave with our gear. There's an old trapper's cache not far from here, Emma offered. I saw it marked on one of Blackwood's maps. Might have what we need. They set out through the forest, moving as quietly as Emma's injury allowed. The night wrapped around them like a cloak, hiding them from searching eyes but also concealing potential dangers. Every snapping twig, every rustle of leaves sent them freezing in place, hearts pounding. The trapper's cache proved to be a small, well-hidden shelter dug into a hillside and concealed by brush. Inside, they found basic supplies, dried meat, ammunition, basic medical items, left by wilderness men for emergencies. As Sarah used the medical supplies to properly clean and bandage Emma's wound, Travis inventoried what they had to work with. His expression grew marginally less grim as he loaded spare ammunition into his pockets. It's not much, he admitted, but it might be enough. It has to be, Sarah replied, helping Emma back to her feet. Those women have no one else. Under the cold light of the stars, the 3 unlikely allies formed their desperate plan. Dawn was still hours away, time enough to reach the hidden camp and observe its defenses before attempting a rescue that logic said was impossible. As they prepared to depart, Travis caught Sarah's arm, drawing her slightly away from Emma. This isn't your fight, he said quietly. Not anymore. You've escaped. You could wait here, stay safe. Sarah placed her hand over his, feeling the rough calluses of a lifetime of hard work. It became my fight the moment Blackwood put chains on me, she said. And I won't be truly free until every woman he's captured is free as well. Something shifted in Travis's eyes. Respect, certainly, but something deeper as well. Without another word, he nodded and released her arm. They moved into the night, 3 shadows among many in a forest filled with secrets and dangers. Behind them, the cave mouth stood as a testament to those who had sought escape before them. Ahead lay either justice or death, and none of them could say which awaited at journey's end. They approached Blackwood's camp under the cover of darkness, guided by Emma's knowledge and the stolen map. The hidden compound lay nestled in a narrow box canyon, its entrance concealed by a dense stand of pines. From their vantage point on a rocky slope above, they could make out the layout, 5 cabins arranged in a rough semicircle around a central clearing, with a larger structure set apart from the others. That's where they keep the women, Emma whispered, pointing to the largest cabin. Guards posted front and back. The smaller cabin beside it is Blackwood's quarters and office. Travis studied the compound through his field glass. I count 3 men on patrol. 2 more likely inside. 5 altogether, Sarah confirmed. Just as Emma said. They watched the camp for an hour, noting the guards' patterns. 1 man circled the perimeter at regular intervals. Another stood watch near the main cabin, while a 3rd remained by a small corral that held several horses. They're expecting trouble, Travis observed. Not their usual routine. Emma nodded. They know I escaped. They'll be watching for me, or for someone coming to help. Sarah studied the crude map Emma had drawn in the dirt, showing guard positions and the cabin's interior layout. How many women did you say were still captive? 3 when I left. Emma's voice caught. Rachel, Catherine, and Mary. They were all taken within the last month. Travis gestured toward the eastern horizon, where the sky was beginning to lighten almost imperceptibly. Dawn's coming. We need to move before full light. They refined their plan, each contributing based on their unique knowledge. Emma knew the camp's routines and vulnerabilities. Travis understood tactics and combat. Sarah, having experienced captivity firsthand, could anticipate how the women might react to a rescue attempt. I should go in first, Emma insisted. The women know me. They'll trust me. Too dangerous, Travis countered. Your leg won't allow you to move quickly if things go wrong. I'll go, Sarah said quietly. Both turned to look at her. I can approach from the west, using that dry creek for cover. If I'm caught, I'll claim I escaped from the cabin where Blackwood held me. Travis's jaw tightened. Absolutely not. It makes tactical sense, Sarah pressed. I'm the logical distraction. While they're focused on me, you can approach from the east and free the women. And if Blackwood is there? If he recognizes you? He won't be expecting me to return willingly. It will confuse him, give us an advantage. Travis studied her face, seeing the determination there. It's too risky. This entire plan is risky, she replied. But it's the best chance those women have. Their quiet argument continued, with Emma eventually supporting Sarah's position. Travis finally relented, though his expression remained troubled. If anything goes wrong, anything at all, you get out, he insisted. Don't wait for me. Sarah nodded, though they both knew she was agreeing only to end the debate. Neither of them would abandon the other, or the women they had come to rescue. As they made final preparations, Emma carefully drew a more detailed map of the camp's interior, focusing on the main cabin where the women were held. There's a hidden cellar, she explained, sketching its location. Access is through a trapdoor under a rug in the main room. That's where they keep new arrivals, women who still fight back. Sarah studied the drawing, committing it to memory. And the regular guards? What are they like? Mean, Emma replied simply. Especially Carter, the one with the red beard. He's Blackwood's second. The others do what he says. Travis checked his weapons one final time. The Winchester rifle, his revolver, and a hunting knife strapped to his belt. He offered the pistol to Sarah. You remember how to use it? Sarah nodded, accepting the weapon with steadier hands than she would have thought possible days earlier. Point and squeeze, not pull. I remember. The eastern sky continued to lighten, bringing with it the promise of dawn. They had perhaps an hour before full daylight would make their approach more dangerous. One last thing, Travis said, his voice low and serious. If Blackwood is there, he's mine. Not for revenge. Because he's dangerous and experienced. I have the best chance against him. Sarah wanted to argue but recognized the logic in his words. She nodded reluctantly. As they prepared to separate, Travis reached into his pocket and removed the silver pocket compass, Elizabeth's compass. For a moment he stared at its cracked face, then held it out to Sarah. Take this, he said. For luck. The gesture's significance wasn't lost on her. This treasured memento of his wife, perhaps the only thing he had managed to save from the fire that claimed his family, was more than a simple good luck charm. It was a talisman, a piece of his heart he had carried through 5 years of grief and wandering. Travis, I can't. Please, he said simply. I'd feel better knowing you have it. Sarah accepted the compass, carefully tucking it into her pocket. I'll return it to you when this is over. See that you do. His voice was gruff, masking emotion. As the first birds began their morning songs, they moved into position. Emma would remain at the observation point, watching for any approach and ready to signal if reinforcements arrived at the camp. Travis circled east, using the terrain for cover as he approached the rear of the compound. Sarah began her descent toward the dry creek that would lead her to the western edge of the camp. Before they separated, Travis had taken Sarah's hand briefly, his calloused fingers warm against her palm. Be careful, was all he said, but his eyes conveyed much more. Now, as Sarah crept through the pre-dawn shadows, the weight of the compass in her pocket reminded her that she carried more than just a piece of metal. She carried a promise to return, to survive, to help create a future where Blackwood's evil could no longer thrive. Ahead, the first cabin came into view. A guard leaned against its porch support, rifle cradled in his arms, unaware that his world was about to change forever. Sarah moved through the dry creek like a shadow, each step carefully placed to avoid dislodging stones or snapping twigs. The eastern sky had lightened to a pale gray, but the canyon floor remained in darkness, giving her precious minutes to reach her position. She paused at the edge of the camp's clearing, surveying the scene one last time. The guard she had spotted earlier still leaned against the porch support, but his posture had changed, more alert now as dawn approached. A second man had emerged from one of the smaller cabins, yawning widely as he stirred the remains of a campfire. The moment had come. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of Travis's pistol at her waistband and his compass in her pocket. Then she stepped from cover, stumbling into the clearing as if exhausted and disoriented. "Help," she called, her voice deliberately weak. "Please help me." The reaction was immediate. The guard by the porch straightened, rifle swinging toward her. The second man dropped the stick he'd been using to stir the fire and drew his pistol. "Stop right there," the porch guard called. "Hands where I can see them." Sarah raised her hands, swaying slightly as if about to collapse. "Please," she repeated. "I've been running for days." The men approached cautiously, weapons trained on her. As they drew closer, Sarah recognized the red-bearded man as Carter, Blackwood's lieutenant whom Emma had warned them about. "Who are you?" Carter demanded, keeping his distance. "Where'd you come from?" "Sarah Lawson," she answered truthfully. "Blackwood kept me in a cabin up in the old mining settlement." Recognition flickered in Carter's eyes. "You're the teacher, the one who escaped with that drifter." His grip on his rifle tightened. "Where is he?" "Dead," Sarah lied, letting tears fill her eyes. "Blackwood found us. Shot him. I ran, got lost in the mountains." Carter exchanged glances with the other guard, suspicion evident in their expressions. "And you just happened to find our camp?" "I saw the smoke," Sarah said, gesturing vaguely toward the campfire. "Please, I need water. Food. I haven't eaten in days." The second guard lowered his weapon slightly. "Could be telling the truth, Carter. She looks half dead." Carter's eyes narrowed. "Blackwood said to watch for her. Said she was clever." He raised his rifle again. "Search her." The second guard approached, roughly patting down Sarah's clothing. She tensed as his hands neared the hidden pistol at her waistband, but he missed it, concealed as it was beneath the loose folds of her shirt. "She's clean," he reported. Carter jerked his head toward the main cabin. "Get her inside. I'll send someone to find Blackwood. He'll want to deal with her personally." The guard grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her toward the cabin. As they crossed the clearing, she scanned the perimeter, searching for any sign of Travis. The eastern edge of the camp remained still and silent. Inside the main cabin, the guard shoved Sarah into a chair. The room was sparsely furnished. A table, several chairs, a stove in the corner. A threadbare rug covered part of the plank floor, concealing the trapdoor Emma had described. "Don't move," the guard warned, producing a set of keys from his pocket. Sarah's heart quickened at the sight. The key ring Emma had mentioned, the one that unlocked the women's chains. A floorboard creaked overhead, followed by a muffled sob. The guard glanced up, then back at Sarah with a smirk. "Your new neighbors," he said. "Though I reckon Blackwood will put you someplace special. He was mighty upset when you disappeared." Sarah forced herself to appear frightened, not difficult under the circumstances. "Where is he?" "Checking traps in the North Valley. Should be back by noon." The guard hooked the key ring back onto his belt. "Lucky for you. Gives you a few hours to think about what's coming." A commotion outside drew his attention, shouting, followed by a single gunshot. The guard moved to the window, peering out cautiously. "What the hell?" he muttered, then turned to Sarah. "Don't move. I mean it." The moment he stepped outside, Sarah sprang into action. She retrieved Travis's pistol from her waistband and moved to the rug, throwing it aside to reveal the trapdoor Emma had described. It was secured with a heavy padlock. Sarah pressed her ear to the wooden door, whispering urgently, "Is anyone down there? Rachel? Catherine? Mary?" A pause, then a faint voice replied, "Who's there?" Who are you? My name is Sarah. I'm here to help you. Is the cellar large? Are you chained? Yes, came the reply. 3 of us. We're chained to the wall. Outside, the shouting continued. Travis had made his move, creating the diversion they had planned. Sarah knew she had only minutes before the guard returned. She examined the padlock, remembering Travis's lessons about weaknesses in such mechanisms. Taking aim with his pistol, she fired at point-blank range, the shot deafening in the confined space. The lock shattered, pieces flying across the floor. Sarah pulled open the trapdoor, revealing a ladder descending into darkness. The stench of unwashed bodies and human waste rose from below. She climbed down quickly, feeling her way in the dim light filtering from above. 3 women huddled against the earthen wall, their expressions a mixture of fear and desperate hope. All were secured with chains similar to those Blackwood had used on Sarah. The sight rekindled her rage, strengthening her resolve. I'm going to free you, she promised, examining the chains. My friend and I came to help. There's another girl, Emma Sullivan. She escaped and led us here. Emma's alive? One woman gasped. We thought. She's alive, Sarah confirmed. And you will be too. But we need to hurry. The sound of boots on the cabin floor above froze them all. The guard had returned. Sarah positioned herself at the foot of the ladder, pistol raised, as a shadow darkened the trapdoor opening. Sarah? Travis's voice called down. It's me. Relief washed over her as his face appeared in the opening. Travis! The women are here, chained. He descended quickly, a ring of keys in his hand. Got these from the guard. Carter's down, and I've created enough confusion to buy us time. But Blackwood could return any minute. Together, they unlocked the women's chains. All 3 were weak from captivity, their bodies thin and bruised, eyes hollow from trauma. As the last lock fell away, Travis helped them up the ladder one by one while Sarah supported them from below. In the cabin above, Travis had barricaded the door with furniture. Through the window, Sarah could see men running between cabins, shouting orders and loading weapons. We've stirred up the hornet's nest, Travis said grimly. Now we need to get out before they organize. The rescue had begun, but the most dangerous part of their mission still lay ahead, escaping the camp with 3 weakened women in tow, pursued by armed men with intimate knowledge of the surrounding wilderness. As Travis checked his rifle and peered through the cabin windows, planning their next move, Sarah felt the weight of the silver compass in her pocket, a talisman of hope in what still seemed like an impossible situation. The rescued women huddled in the center of the cabin, terror and hope warring in their gaunt faces. Travis had given them water, which they drank with desperate thirst while he and Sarah planned their escape. Back door is our best option, Travis said, peering through a crack in the boarded window. I've created a diversion at the north end of the camp, set fire to the supply shed. Most of them are dealing with that. What about horses? Sarah asked. These women can't travel far on foot. Travis nodded. Corral's on our way out. If we can reach it? A woman with matted blonde hair, Catherine, she'd said her name was, spoke up weakly. They'll be watching the horses. Always do. Then we'll need another distraction, Sarah said, her mind racing. Her gaze fell on Blackwood's office door at the far end of the cabin. His quarters, there might be something useful. Travis hesitated only a moment before nodding. Make it quick. Sarah slipped through the door into Blackwood's private domain. The space was surprisingly orderly, a narrow bed, a desk covered with maps and papers, shelves holding books and various souvenirs. A silver-handled knife lay on the desk, its blade honed to a wicked edge. Sarah recognized it immediately. Blackwood had carried it during her captivity, using it to cut her food into tiny pieces, a perverse ritual of control. She grabbed the knife, tucking it into her belt, then gathered papers that looked important, ledgers with names and transactions, maps of other locations. Evidence that might help bring down not just Blackwood but his entire operation. A heavy metal box caught her attention, hidden beneath the desk. It was locked, but the key hung on a nail driven into the desk's underside. Inside, she found money, more than she had ever seen in one place, and letters implicating officials in redemption and other settlements. She took it all. When Sarah returned to the main room, Travis had organized the women into a rough line. "Ready?" he asked. Sarah nodded, showing him the documents and box. "Evidence. For the federal marshal." A faint smile touched his lips. Approval, perhaps even admiration. "Let's go." They slipped out the back door into the gray dawn light. The supply shed at the far end of the camp blazed fiercely, black smoke billowing into the sky. Most of Blackwood's men were focused on containing the fire, but one guard remained at the corral, rifle in hand. "Stay here," Travis whispered, easing away from the group. He disappeared around the corner of the nearest cabin. Sarah kept the women close, whispering encouragement as they waited. Minutes stretched endlessly until a sharp crack, not quite a gunshot, came from the direction of the corral. The guard's startled shout was cut abruptly short. "Now," Sarah urged, leading the group toward the corral. They found Travis already saddling 2 horses, the guard unconscious at his feet. "Only 2 can ride," he said tersely. "The rest will have to double up or walk until we're clear." Catherine, the weakest of the group, and Mary, whose feet were badly injured from earlier escape attempts, were helped onto the horses. Travis led the way, with Sarah bringing up the rear, pistol at the ready. They had almost reached the edge of the camp when a shout went up from behind them. Their absence had been discovered. Gunfire erupted, bullets splintering wood as they dove for cover behind a stack of lumber. "Keep going," Travis told the women, handing Catherine the reins to her horse. "Follow the creek bed east. You'll find a girl named Emma watching from the ridge. She'll guide you to safety." "What about you?" Mary asked, her eyes wide with fear. "We'll cover your escape," Sarah answered before Travis could. "Go. Now." As the women urged their horses forward, disappearing into the trees, Travis gave Sarah a hard look. "You should go with them." "Not a chance," she replied, checking the ammunition in her pistol. "We started this together." More shouts came from the camp, closer now. Travis and Sarah retreated further into the forest, firing occasionally to slow their pursuers. They circled north, drawing the men away from the escaping women. For nearly an hour, they played a deadly game of cat and mouse among the trees. Travis's experience as a scout served them well, allowing them to stay just ahead of their hunters. But eventually, they found themselves hemmed in, a sheer rock face behind them, Blackwood's men spreading out to encircle them from the front. "Up," Travis decided, pointing to a narrow game trail that switchbacked up the cliff face. "It's our only chance." They climbed desperately, loose rocks sliding beneath their feet. Bullets ricocheted off the stone around them. Halfway up, Sarah slipped, nearly falling before Travis caught her arm, hauling her back to safety. At the top, they found themselves in a small clearing ringed by lightning-struck pines. Beyond lay only sky. They had reached the edge of a precipice with nowhere left to run. "Well, well," came a voice from the tree line behind them. "The teacher and her rescuer. How touching." Emmett Blackwood stepped into the clearing, a rifle cradled in his arms. Behind him, 2 of his men spread out, weapons trained on Travis and Sarah. "You've caused me considerable trouble," Blackwood continued conversationally. "Damaged my property. Stolen what was mine." His cold eyes fixed on Sarah. "Did you really think you could escape me?" "We did escape you," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. "And so did your other prisoners." Rage flashed across Blackwood's features before he controlled it. "Temporary setback. I'll find them. Find others too." He gestured with his rifle. "But first I'll deal with you." Travis had positioned himself slightly in front of Sarah, his rifle aimed at Blackwood's chest. "You're finished," he said quietly. "Those women will reach the authorities. They have your records, your accounts. Everything." Uncertainty flickered in Blackwood's eyes, quickly replaced by calculated menace. "Then I have nothing to lose, do I?" He raised his rifle. "Ladies first, I think. So you can watch her die." Time seemed to slow as Blackwood took aim at Sarah. Travis lunged forward, firing as he moved. His bullet caught one of Blackwood's men in the shoulder, spinning him to the ground. The second man returned fire, forcing Travis to dive for cover behind a fallen log. Sarah dropped to a crouch as bullets tore through the space where she had stood. Her hand found the silver-handled knife at her belt, Blackwood's own weapon. Without conscious thought, she drew it and threw it with all her strength. The knife caught Blackwood in the arm, causing his shot to go wide. He howled in pain and rage, tearing the blade free and advancing on Sarah with murderous intent. "I should have broken you when I had the chance," he snarled, blood streaming down his. "So, should have." Travis's rifle cracked again, the bullet taking Blackwood in the leg. He stumbled but didn't fall, swinging his own rifle toward Travis with desperate speed. Sarah didn't hesitate. She launched herself at Blackwood, driving her shoulder into his wounded side. They fell together, struggling for control of his weapon. Blackwood's strength was formidable despite his injuries, his face contorted with hate as he fought to aim the rifle at her. "You're mine," he hissed. "Always will be." "No," Sarah gritted out, fighting with everything she had. "I'm free." The rifle discharged, the shot going wild. In their struggle, they rolled perilously close to the cliff edge. Rocks crumbled beneath them, falling away into nothingness. The journey to redemption took them a full day, a procession of the wounded and weary making their slow way toward civilization. Travis had fashioned a crude travois to transport Catherine, whose strength had failed her completely after their escape. Sarah walked beside him, supporting his weight when his own injuries threatened to overcome him. Emma and the other women had rendezvoused with them as planned, tearful reunions giving way to the practical necessities of survival. Together, they had made their way down from the mountains, following game trails and streams, always alert for pursuit that never materialized. Blackwood was gone, his body broken on the rocks far below the cliff where he and Sarah had struggled. In their final moments together, as the earth crumbled beneath them, Sarah had pushed herself away, rolling to safety while Blackwood clutched desperately at empty air. His scream had echoed briefly, then silence. The remaining men, leaderless and wounded, had fled into the wilderness. Redemption appeared before them as the sun began to set, a collection of weathered buildings that represented safety after their ordeal. As they approached the main street, people emerged from stores and saloons, staring in amazement at the bedraggled group. "Fetch the doctor," Travis called to an open-mouthed young man. "And the federal marshal if he's in town." The town's doctor, a gray-haired man named Peterson, welcomed them into his small clinic with efficiency born of years treating frontier injuries. After ensuring the former captives were being cared for, he turned his attention to Travis's wounds. "You're lucky to be alive," he commented, cleaning the bullet graze on Travis's side, his second such injury in less than a week. "Another inch to the left." "Wasn't luck," Travis replied, his eyes finding Sarah across the room. She sat beside Emma, their heads bent together in quiet conversation. Word of their arrival spread quickly through Redemption. By nightfall, the federal marshal had arrived from a neighboring settlement, summoned by telegraph. Unlike the local sheriff, who had mysteriously disappeared upon hearing of Blackwood's demise, Marshal Harrington was known for his incorruptible nature. In the town's small hotel, converted temporarily into an interview room, Sarah presented the evidence she had gathered from Blackwood's office, the ledgers, maps, and correspondence that detailed his operation and implicated officials throughout the territory. "This is extensive," Harrington said, leafing through the documents with growing amazement. "Human trafficking, corruption, murder. Blackwood was just the visible face of something much larger." "Will it be enough?" Sarah asked. "To bring the others to justice?" The marshal nodded grimly. "More than enough. There'll be warrants issued before the week's out." In the days that followed, Redemption became a hive of activity. Telegrams flew between the settlement and territorial authorities. Women from prominent families in Helena arrived to assist the rescued captives. Reporters from as far away as Denver came to document what was being called one of the largest criminal enterprises ever uncovered in the Montana Territory. Through it all, Sarah found herself increasingly drawn to quiet moments away from the commotion, often in the company of Travis, whose taciturn nature seemed to repel the curious and sensation seekers that swarmed around the others. A week after their arrival, Sarah received a letter from the school board in Helena, confirming that her teaching position remained open if she still wished to claim it. That evening, she found Travis on the hotel's small porch, watching the sunset paint the distant mountains gold and crimson. "I've been offered my teaching position," she said, settling into the chair beside him. "They want me to start next month, once the term begins." Travis nodded, his expression unreadable. "Good news, is it?" Sarah studied his profile, weathered by years of sun and hardship, yet somehow more familiar to her now than her own reflection. "I'm not sure I'm the same woman who accepted that position months ago." "You're stronger," Travis said simply. "Wiser, maybe." "Different," Sarah agreed. "The woman I was then, she wouldn't have understood certain things. About the world. About people." She paused. "About herself." Travis turned to face her fully. "What will you do?" Sarah took a deep breath. "I'm going to teach. It's what I know. What I love." She met his gaze steadily. "But not in Helena." Understanding dawned slowly in his eyes. "Where then?" "Redemption needs a teacher. These children deserve an education as much as those in Helena." She hesitated, then added softly, "And I've grown fond of the place, despite everything." The ghost of a smile touched Travis's lips. "Redemption's lucky to have you." "And you?" Sarah asked, her heart beating a touch faster. "What will you do now?" The question hung between them, simple words carrying the weight of possibility. Travis looked back toward the mountains, his expression thoughtful. "Been thinking about that," he said finally. "Marshal Harrington offered me a position as a deputy. Said he could use someone who knows the territory, who can track." "Will you take it?" Travis was silent for a long moment. "5 years I've been drifting. Never staying anywhere long enough to remember what it feels like to belong." He turned back to her. "Might be time to remember." Sarah felt warmth spread through her chest, not the fierce, desperate hope of their days on the run, but something steadier, more enduring. "I still have your compass," she said, withdrawing the silver timepiece from her pocket. "As promised." Travis accepted it, turning the broken memento over in his calloused hands. Then, to Sarah's surprise, he offered it back to her. "Keep it," he said. "Some journeys need a compass." Sarah understood the gesture for what it was, not merely the gift of a treasured possession, but the offering of a future not yet written. She closed her fingers around the compass, its weight now familiar and comforting. As twilight deepened around them, they sat incompanionable. Silence, watching as lights began to appear in the windows of redemption. Neither felt the need to speak further. Words would come later, as would decisions and plans. For now, it was enough to sit together in the gathering darkness, two people who had found in each other something neither had believed possible again, a chance to begin anew. 3 months later, the schoolhouse bell rang for the first time in Redemption's history. Children gathered from farms and ranches miles around to receive their education from the new teacher, a woman whose quiet strength and gentle patience had already earned her the community's respect. And if they noticed that the town's deputy marshal made a habit of walking the teacher home each afternoon, they were wise enough not to comment on the matter. Some stories, after all, were still being written, one day at a time, in a town aptly named for the second chances it offered those willing to seek them.